Hi, everybody, and welcome to English Digest. I'm Pat.
And I'm Elsie.
And today we're going to be going through our translation unit for this month. We have a whole bunch of different sentences about topics full of useful vocabulary, phrases, transition words, grammar, and other good things. Now, our first set of sentences is all going to be talking about buying a house. Is this something you have ever considered?
Yes, and I think I still do now, but the more I look at those houses or apartments for sale online, the more I think, maybe it's really impossible for us to buy a house in Taipei City.
Yes, that is exactly how I think. If I compare the house prices for a small box apartment in Taipei, I could get a 3-story, 4-bedroom house with a garden in my home city.
I know, so it's just not worth it.
In Taipei, it is pretty silly. You either have to be made out of gold to get it, or rich family or something like that, or you're taking a big, right, I'm going to gamble that it's going to be worth it in the end.
Yeah, maybe outside of Taipei.
Yeah,
would be okay.
Different story. If you're prepared to live further away, and if you want to commute or work from home, or if you've got some other deal, yes, it obviously is great to buy a house because you can pass it on to your descendants, you can sell it down the line if you need to get money, it's an investment. Hopefully it's going to be worth more. And you're never at risk of what happened to me last year when the landlord said, we want to sell the house. You go and live somewhere else.
Oh, no.
You have a month to move you and 2 children. Not happy about that, but it wouldn't have happened if I'd bought the house, only I can't afford one. And that's the deal we're going to be talking about here. So let's get into part A, which is a set of single sentences. Sentence 1. Due to high house prices, it's the new normal that young people in big cities can't afford to buy houses.
这一句话的中文是由于高房价，大都市的年轻人呢都买不起房子，这个是新的常态。那这个是常态，所以我们的时态当然要用的是现在简单式，描述事实。
It's not just young people. I'm not a young person. And
It's everybody.
I can't afford to buy a house.
Most of the people.
Not until I go and rob that, jewelry and diamond store down the road or something like that. Until I do that, I don't think I'll be buying a house. Now, normal is usually an adjective. It was a normal day. The weather is pretty normal for this time of year. But here we're using it as a noun. The normal, often said as just the norm, is used to talk about what is common right now, what the situation is at the moment. When we say something is the new normal or the new norm, we mean that things have changed, but the new way is now the way things will stay. For example, I can say from experience, when you have a baby, not getting enough sleep is the new normal.The
new normal 那就是新的常态，所以你会发现 normal 这边呢当的是名词，代表常态。那像是呢 as normal 如同往常，或是 back to normal return to normal 回归以往。好，这边的 normal 都是名词。再来the norm 它也有常态、普遍状态的意思。那这个用法通常是做单数名词使用。给同学们一个例句咯 Social distancing and mask wearing became the norm in 2020 after COVID-19 became widespread. 在新冠疫情迅速扩散之后维持社交距离跟佩戴口罩是在西元2020年成为的常态。
Yeah, normal doesn't have to be a bad thing, by the way. I have a tattoo on my leg which says, normal is great when you get it back. If you've had a long illness and you suddenly feel healthy again, even if you're just getting back to normal, it is an absolutely wonderful feeling. It does feel great when things are normal. Here we're saying the new normal is high house prices. And high prices means things are expensive and therefore many people can't afford them. If you can't afford something, you do not have enough money. We can also use afford to mean that something must be done or you shouldn't miss out on something, like it's not going to be good for you, not in terms of not having the money, but in terms of a missed opportunity or something like that. For example, you might say, we can't afford to miss out on this opportunity to travel. That doesn't mean you can't pay for it, it just means it's such a great opportunity, you can't miss it, you have to take it.
afford 用来解释买得起或是可负担，那动词 afford 常与 can 或是 can't 来连用，像是 can afford something or can afford to do something， 那代表就是买得起，好，或是能够去做某件事情。那如果是 can't， 当然就是买不起，不能，没有经济能力去做。
So you might say, for example, I can't afford to fail this exam or I'll have to repeat the 7th grade, which means, sure, it's not going to cost you money, but if you fail, there will be big negative consequences.
是的，或是直接在后面加名词 I can afford the house， 那就代表你可以去买得起这间房子。
Right. So let's move on to our next sentence, which gives more details about why young people can't buy houses. The sentence number 2. Sentence 2 says,No matter how much money they save, house prices always rise faster than their savings.
中文是呢，无论他们存下多少钱，房价涨得总是比他们的存款快。那时态呢，当然也是用现在简单式来描述事实。
We use no matter how to say it really doesn't matter much how much they save. The number can never be high enough.No matter if they save hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of NT, thousands of NT, it's still not enough. It doesn't matter. The situation will not change. We can use other WH question words in place of how in this kind of pattern, like no matter why means it doesn't matter what the reason is. No matter who, doesn't matter who the person is. No matter where, doesn't matter where the place is, and so on. For example, no matter where I go, I always take my camera with me, meaning wherever I go, I always take my camera with me.
是的，那无论不管，好，在对应到英文当中呢，有许多不同的用法。第一种呢，我们可以用 no matter 加上一个 WH 的疑问词，好，或是 how， 然后再加上主词跟动词，有无论的意思。那在有些情况当中呢，你也可以用WH 加上 ever 来替代，像是 whatever, whoever, whenever, wherever 这些字。For example, no matter when I leave the house, I always seem to miss the bus. 无论我何时出门，我总是似乎错过公车。那再来第二个 regardless of， 语义上呢也有无论或是一定会的意思。那用法是 regardless of 后面加上名词或是名词片语。For example, our school accepts all students regardless of their previous academic achievements. 本校会录取所有的学生，无论他们先前的学业成就如何。那再来就是第三种 whether， 好，通常呢会与 or 来连用，表示无论 A 或是 B。那用法是whether or not 主词加动词，或者是 whether 主词加动词再加上 or not。再来是第三个 whether A or B 逗号之后再加上主词或动词，像是呢 whether you pass or fail, the important thing is that you tried your best. 无论你考试通过与否，重要的是你有尽全力。
And the reason that people aren't able to save enough money to afford a house is because house prices keep rising. The verb rise means to go up. We would say the temperature is rising as we get closer to summer. So, and this is the thing, people might look and go, well, 20 years ago, I had enough money to buy a house, but the prices keep going up, so how can I possibly afford it?
是的，房价不断的上涨，所以呢，价格、利率或是温度等事物的上升，你可以用 rise 或者是 go up 来说。那切记哦，不要将 rise 跟 raise 混用了。它们呢，虽然看起来好像解释相同，可是用法是不同的。因为 rise 它是一个不及物动词，主词就是上升的价格。那 raise 它是及物动词，以调涨的价格来说用法是主词加 raise 再加 prices。So, for example, every year the cost of housing rises, and more people are struggling to afford rent. 住房成本每年都在上涨，所以越来越多人就难以负担租金。这边的主词是我们的租金，然后后面用的就是 rises， 也就是这个上升的意思。那再来 ，vegetables are becoming more expensive, and this raises the price of meals in restaurants. 你会看到 raises 后面出现了受词，好，也就是蔬菜变贵了，这也提高餐厅餐点的价格。
And of course, both of these can be used as nouns as well. If you say there has been a rise in prices, that means the prices have gone up. When we use raise as a noun, mostly we're talking about money that you get for your job. I got a raise today. I asked my boss for a raise. Oh, my boss wouldn't give me a raise. So in that case, raise as a noun just means an increase in the amount of money you get for your job, per hour, per week, per year, whatever it happens to be. So in that sentence, sentence 2, we say no matter how much money they save, house prices rise faster than their savings. So here we've got a comparison. Maybe they're saving more, but house prices are going up faster than their savings. It's not an equal thing. Savings means the money that you have in the bank or somewhere else. It could be like in a bag under your mattress or under your floorboards. That in the old days would have been more like saving. But these days, for safety's sake, people save their money in the bank. They put it in special accounts that you can't open for a year. Or sometimes they invest it in something that they can hopefully make more money out of and take it back later. That can still count kind of as being in savings. It's basically money that you're keeping for important things later, not the kind of money that you're going to spend every day.
我们说存钱是 save money， 好，我们会用 save save 这个动词，所以呢，存款那就是 savings。那要去注意哦，这个用法横为复数，那字尾的 s 是一直要有的。
Yeah, you definitely want to make that plural. You might say, for example, I don't want to go on vacation as it will eat into my savings too much. In other words, yes, I can afford it, but I'm hoping to save up that money for a car, a house, something else, and I don't want to use it on a vacation right now.
所以 eat into my savings 那就是花掉我的存款。
Yes, imagine that it's like a cake and a little mouse is biting off pieces of it to enjoy. It's eating into the cake. You could also say the water is eating into the riverbank, meaning it's kind of making it fall away slowly, bit by bit. It's like it's taking a bite out of it, that kind of thing. Okay, that is our first 2 sentences. We're now going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to be looking at part B and our second pair of sentences. Hi everybody, welcome back. In part B of our translation unit, we're going to be looking at a pair of sentences about the idea of zoos. So before we kind of talk about the good and bad points about zoos, let's think about some of the ones we've been to.
I've been to, of course, Taipei City Zoo.
Yep.
Liufu Village Zoo.
Okay.
And also I've been to Omaha Zoo.
Okay.
And San Diego Zoo.
What's Omaha got?
It's really big. And did you know that Omaha Zoo and San Diego Zoo, they both are competing to be the best zoo in America every year.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So San Diego Zoo, I think it's the best this year.
Okay. And is that to do with the number and variety of animals or the way they kind of treat the animals and their space?
I think so. So, of course, compared with Taipei City Zoo, their zoos are a lot bigger and they're more open.
Oh, that's good.
So I think, the animals there have more space or maybe more freedom.
Yeah, Taipei Zoo, I think, is generally okay. I've been to
small, right?
It's a little small, but it's not the worst I've seen. Hsinchu Zoo it's pretty small, but it's actually not too bad.
It's more open?
It's a little bit open, and they haven't got they haven't got a lot of big animals, that kind of thing. They've got a tiger, which does look kind of sad in its small space. I've been to Kaohsiung Zoo, and that one really did feel too small.
Okay, I've never been to the Kaohsiung one.
I'd avoid it. It didn't make me feel good. And maybe it's changed. It's been many years. There's a zoo not too far from where I grew up called Twycross Zoo. That's where my family and I that's where my parents would take us every summer to kind of see all the cool animals. It's got a lot of stuff in there, including some quite famous chimpanzees who were starred in tea adverts in the UK when I was growing up.
Interesting.
Quite cool. But of course, that zoos are interesting, but are zoos a good thing or not? That's what we're going to discuss. Let's quickly get our opinions. Zoos, good or bad?
Bad.
Why?
Because I think it never will be enough space for them to live in the zoo.
I do agree with that. However, I think the positives maybe outweigh the negatives because I think if you didn't have zoos, you couldn't get young people so interested in animals, looking after animals, learning about animals. They kind of need to, I think they need to see them and like feel that they're in the world, not just on computers or TVs.
And people can take care of the animals in the zoo,
right?
Right.
There are some zoos which actually allow animals to exist that wouldn't exist in the wild.
Yes.
Because they provide spaces that are no longer there.
Right.
They can also look after diseases. Zoos are a lot better. They can work on breeding programs to make sure that certain species continue, that kind of thing. So, yeah, it is not fun for the animals to be confined like that, particularly certain animals. But I think zoos do bring a lot of positives. So while I recognize that they're not perfect, I think they do have enough benefits to make them worthwhile.
Yeah, if they're really doing something for them, then it's okay.
Yes, of course, it always depends on exactly the zoo and what it's doing.
They can't just keep them in the cages.
Right. So obviously this is a difficult issue, and that's reflected in our first sentence of this set. It says, the question of whether or not it is appropriate to establish zoos has always been hotly debated.
中文是呢，设立动物园是否合宜的问题，一直以来都受到激烈的讨论。那时态当然是以现在完成式来描述持续发生的动作，因为我们的中文里面有一直以来。
So the question is, as we've been discussing, whether or not zoos are appropriate. That means, are they the right thing to do or the right thing to have or not? If something is appropriate, then it means it's generally accepted by people in society in general as being okay, as being a good thing, as being allowed. So you might say, it's not appropriate or inappropriate to wear a t-shirt and sandals to a job interview.
合宜的，好，我们可以用 appropriate 或者是 proper 或者是fitting 来说，那其中 fitting 呢是比较正式的用法，常见的句型是 It's fitting that， 表示呢在特定情况下去做是显得恰当的。For example, it's fitting that the concert is being held tonight on the anniversary of the composer's death. 这场音乐会于今晚举行再适合不过了。今天是作曲家逝世周年。
Yeah, that's saying this is a good way to honor him. This is a great night to choose because this is the day he died and therefore people will remember him. So the next word we will look at is establish, which means to set up. We generally use establish for more official things. Businesses, schools, hospitals, and of course, in this case, zoos. You wouldn't really say you could establish a school club, I suppose, but it's a little more formal than that. We could also use the word found, F-O-U-N-D, and then, of course, bear in mind that found is the present tense form. This is not the past tense of find, found, founded, founded. Here's a sentence. The wealthy man established or founded a charity that looked after young people without families.
设立、建立可以用 establish, found 或是 set up 来说，那三者的用法呢都是直接加上受词表示创立，所以呢我们可以说Frank set up an organization that gives out food to people in need， 代表 Frank 创立了一间将食物分送给穷人的机构。
And as you might have guessed from Elsie and I's discussion, this is a difficult question to answer. It's not so easy as other things when you say, oh, yeah, that's right, or nah, that's not right. It's a difficult question, and we say it's hotly debated. If something is hotly debated, it means it causes a lot of arguments and it causes a lot of controversy or controversy. People will get emotional about it. They will argue hard instead of just exchange facts and ideas. Something that's hotly debated is likely to make people feel a little bit upset rather than something abstract they can step back from and say, oh, we're just talking about a problem here. No, the hotly debated thing is going to get people really involved and maybe people might lose their temper and, it could cause a friendship to break down if it was a really hotly debated issue. political stuff is often hotly debated. You might say, the winner of the singing contest was hotly debated, with two judges arguing a lot over who should win.
激烈的辩论呢，我们可以用 hotly 这个字来修饰。那这个字啊，多半带有愤怒啦、激动等等高昂的情绪。那常常搭配的动词就是 debate、dispute 或者是 deny 这些动词。那当然呢，我们也可以在这里用 fiercely。好，来替换 hotly 这个字。For example, the effectiveness of the new medicine was fiercely disputed by many doctors. 代表这款新药的功效受到许多医生的激烈争辩。
Yeah, if you're going to hotly debate something, it's likely that you will start to feel a bit hot. You know, your mouth, you'll be shouting a bit more, your face will maybe go a bit red, you'll feel that heat of an emotion coming through you. Maybe you might lose control of your kind of emotions and your judgment.
Yeah, your heart racing.
A little bit, yeah. This isn't an academic discussion between two people sitting back and going, well, I think this and you're right. No, it's like, no, you're wrong. It's like this and I'm going to tell you this way and you better not argue. That's a hot debate because it gets people's temperature up, gets their blood boiling. So, Elsie and I have covered some of this in our introduction to Part B, but what makes people dislike the idea of zoos? The next sentence explains it and gives a couple of details. Many animal experts point out that long captivity will lead to animals behaving abnormally.
这里的中文下，许多动物专家指出，长时间的监禁会导致动物的行为反常。那时态我们用现在简单式描述事实。
So we're getting the opinions of experts here. Experts are people who know a lot about a particular subject. They have studied it, they've experienced it, they've read a lot, and so on. You could be an expert on all sorts of things, from sports to science to movies to anything. If you know a great deal about a subject and you've spent a lot of time kind of studying and thinking about it, you're likely to be an expert. Now, in this case, we're talking about animal experts, and here's another example. Medical experts say that we'll be living with COVID-19 for a long time.
专家我们就用到名词 expert， 那它之后啊可以接不同的介系词哦，像是呢 an expert at 后面加上 VING， 那就表示做某事的专家。那另外呢 an expert on 加上主题、议题或是事物，那就是表示对其有深入研究的专家。那 an expert in 加上科目，那就表示该学科的专家。此外呢，这里的专家也可以用 specialist 这个字来替换。For example, Mrs. Fields is an expert in classical music and has written books about Mozart and Beethoven. Mrs. Fields 也就是这位女士呢，她是古典音乐的专家，写了几本关于莫扎特和贝多芬的著作。
And these experts are pointing something out. This means they're making an important point, they're highlighting something important, they're focusing on this particular issue so that people pay attention to it. Essentially, they're almost like pointing a finger and saying, look, this is the thing you should look at. This is the important thing. So when you're pointing stuff out, if you're on the street and you were pointing at a building, you probably would point with your finger as well. Oh, look, over there, that's the city hall. But you can also point something out with an argument by highlighting it, by focusing on it. Here's another example. The teacher pointed out a number of mistakes I had made in my article.
指出或是肯定地说，我们可以用 point out 来代表。那常见的用法呢，第一种 point out that 加上主词以及动词，或是第二个 point something out to somebody。那由于这里呢的指出是专家肯定的说，因此啊也可以译作 declare 或者是 be of the opinion that。So, for example, the teacher is very helpful when she points out mistakes to her students, as she also tells them how to fix their mistakes. 这位教师呢，指出学生的错误是很有帮助的，因为他也告诉学生要如何矫正他们的错误。那再来一个例句咯。Many people enjoyed this book, but I'm of the opinion that it was very badly written. 许多人都喜爱这本书，但是我认为它写得非常糟。
And what experts are pointing out is that being held in captivity is not good for animals. Animals are captives. That's a person, that's a thing that's in captivity. So prisoners are captives in a way because they're in a prison. But you can be a captive without living in a prison. If you can't leave your captivity, or if you can't leave your situation where you are and you're not allowed to leave or get out, then you are a captive. You are in captivity. We can say people can be in captivity, and so can animals. You might say, the criminals held several people in captivity and demanded money to release them.
监禁我们可以译作 captivity， 那尤其以被关在笼子里面的动物而言常见的说法是animals that are held, kept 或是 bred in captivity.
Yeah, so in zoos, basically. So animals in captivity don't behave like they do in the wild. That is pretty clear. They don't get to go hunting. They don't get to walk around huge spaces and travel massive distances at different times of year. And some animals can kind of, okay, I'll adapt. I can live in a zoo comfortably. But other animals just do weird stuff. Some of them just pace back and forth in the same area. A lot of animals will just sleep a lot, or they will do other things to show they're uncomfortable and under stress. This is behaving abnormally or not normally. We will often see this word abnormal in the medical field. You'd say, your test results were abnormal. They are not normal. Something's a bit wrong. So we could say, Jessica is behaving abnormally. She's normally very talkative, but now she doesn't speak much at all.
所以通常的我们说 normally， 那反常我们就用 abnormally。那字首 A、B 开头的字，它有脱离、违反的意思。好，所以呢，我们这个 abnormally 会解释为有违正常的。
Yeah, it's another one of those negative prefixes like in or im or un or dis. Ab is not as common. I can think of abnormal. I struggle to think of any others off the top of my head. There are probably a few more out there, but yeah, normal, abnormal. That would be these two pairs of opposite adjectives. Okay, those are our two sentences, which brings us pretty much to the end of the class. And we sort of finish where we are. Yes, animals in captivity do behave abnormally, and it can be a bit sad to see when you go to certain zoos. However, I'm going to stick with my opinion. I still think zoos do bring enough benefits that we should continue to have them and not just completely get rid of them. But if people are going to establish new zoos, they've really got to make sure they do it in the right way.
Yes.
And I would like to see the kind of older, smaller zoos close down and the animals be moved somewhere where they can be happier.
Right, they should have more space.
Yeah, I mean, of course, you can't return a lot of those animals to the wild. They are used to living in captivity and couldn't survive anymore. But that's all we have time for today. Thanks for listening, everybody. For English Digest, I'm Pat.
I'm Elsie.
And we'll talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.